Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for the intro. Yes, Vignesh and Vaidya mentioned, I am pass out of NITC in 2011. I am from electrical engineering batch. After passing out, I did masters at University of Massachusetts Amherst in electrical and computer engineering. And since then, I've been working at NVIDIA as a system software engineer. For those of you who don't know NVIDIA is a semiconductor company that manufactures graphics processing units like GPUs. So the GPU is basically the component of the system that uh, works on computer graphics. Like if you watch any movie or any animation video, so the unit that renders the content is basically the GPU. So through this talk, I just want to describe what is a GPU, how it differs from the CPU, what is the role of the triangle in graphics, the life cycle of a triangle, and all these are aspects of graphics and what are the enhancements in recent times that has enhanced gameplay, that has made it more realistic and lifelike. Specifically, I just wanted to give a brief picture about ray tracing and HDR. So, what is a GPU and how it differs from the CPU? So, the CPU, as we all know, is a very versatile component of the system. It races through series of tasks that require lots of interaction between different units of the system. Like it's capable of calling up different parts of the system, the hard drive, the keyboard. Like for example, in response to a user's keystroke, it calls upon the hard drive for memory fetching. So, such sort of actions like running an operating system is something that the CPU does. It's good at serial processing. In contrast, the GPU is built for more parallel processing. Like given any workload, it's good at breaking up the complex problem into thousands or millions of separate tasks, like simple instructions, and get them all done at once. Like that, this sort of operation makes them ideal for putting pixels on the screen, which is the fundamentals of graphics. So, like whether it be shading the pixels, figuring out the lighting, the orientation of how the pixels look on the screen. These are things that the GPU is like specifically designed to do. So, in terms of architecture, on the left is an Intel CPU die. It has 4 to 8 cores, and the CPU core is quite complex. It's designed to run control intensive tasks such as all the aspects of running an OS, whereas the GPU core is much smaller and simpler. On the right is a picture of an NVIDIA die. It's about 144 cores packed into the small die. They are simple and they are designed to do simple math operations, arithmetic operations. And because of the simplicity, like hundreds of cores can sit on the same die size as a regular CPU. Moreover, the CPU will have many complex pipeline structures which are designed to maximize instruction parallelism, like how an instruction flows through the unit, compared to the GPU pipeline, which is designed for data parallelism. Um, so here's a comparison of an Intel die versus an NVIDIA Turing die. So the Intel would be maybe 1 inch by 1 inch in size, whereas the GPU die would be about 2 inch by 2 inch in size. Packing more the number of cores that are packed into the die, the more is the computing capability. So and that's the idea behind making it bigger. So before I go further into the talk, I just want to play a quick video clip about what the talk is about. I wanted to give a brief picture of how graphics looks, what goes on behind the scenes of any animation or any game that is being rendered on a GPU. So just to So a lot is going in there while this frame is rendered real time on the screen. So, like if you see those reflections on the helmet, right down to all the details on the hands and the gun, all these are rendered real time through the hardware, and all this lighting and the illuminations. These are all added while it's processed through the GPU pipeline. Like if it's a traditional animation movie, all these images would be painstakingly drawn one after another and created on a CPU. Each frame would take maybe 10 hours to a few days, and stitching them together to make such an animation movie would be quite a task. But with the advent of GPUs, these have become much simpler, much easier, and much faster to do. And how it goes about, it all starts with a triangle. So the fundamentals of graphics is a simple triangle. So it all starts with the game developer, who envisions the screen, the image that he wants to see on the screen, like the 3D world that he's creating. So once he has the image and the sketches of his portrait, he converts them into 3D. And in 3D, if you picture any object in 3D, it's ultimately composed of many small 2D planes, right? Like it could be thousands of millions of 2D planes. Even if we were to picture a sphere, if you zoom in close enough, it's actually composed of finite 2D shapes. It's not really a complete smooth sphere. So the idea behind graphics is to construct such 3D shapes, and the fundamental shape that graphics uses is a triangle. Has anyone wondered why they use a triangle as opposed to a rectangle or a trapezium?
No.
Yeah. So the thing is, like triangle is the smallest shape that's guaranteed to be planar. So if you have any 3 points in 3D space, if you connect them, they are guaranteed to lie on the same plane. That makes it easier for a graphics engine, because to picture so any this is the smallest shape that is guaranteed to remain a plane. So using triangles, it's easy to construct 3D images. Like the image on the right over here, each individual feature, like the eye socket or the forehead or the nose, those are all constructed of overlapping triangles. And each triangle has a finite orientation, it has a finite texture, has a like what is the lighting or the color that it needs to portray. All these are designed by the game developer, and this is the process of how a game is created so that it gets rendered on the GPU. And these triangles that the game designer has written are compiled into what are called shaders. Shaders are basically programs that run on the GPU. In its essence, these are small clips of programs that does finite tasks, like these are the vertices of a triangle, this is the way it's positioned, these are the colors, this is how it should be illuminated, this is how it should show up on the screen. There are different types of shaders. These are different types of programs written for different graphics applications. These could be vertex shaders, pixel shaders, 2D, 3D, and there are other ones called tessellation shaders, which are sort of like depending on how close you are to an object. Um, Say if you are in a 3D world and you are looking at an object, if you are closer to the object, its features need to be more clear, right? It needs to be, you need to be able to see it in better detail. Whereas some object that's farther away from you, those don't need to be rendered in as much detail. They don't need to show up as clear to the viewer or the gamer in as much detail. So tessellation shader is something that distinguishes between two such triangles. So next, I just want to show the stack through which these commands get sent to the GPU. So like the life of a triangle starts from the game, from the shader, and it goes through some bunch of handshaking down to get to the screen. it starts with the game API. The game API calls into the operating system, and the service of the operating system that communicates with the game API is called the runtime. Depending on the game, if it's DX or OGL, the runtime interacts with. There are runtimes that talk to different game engines. The runtime receives these commands and talk to the user mode driver. The user mode driver is written by the hardware vendor. So in NVIDIA's case, we have a user mode driver, and AMD has their own ones. Those are hardware specific. So these drivers convert the commands from the game, the shader commands, into GPU commands. And these GPU commands are ultimately what are consumed by the hardware. So these go through something called the push buffer. So once so these operations are all done on the CPU. So the user mode driver program, the runtime, all these things are invoked and processed by the CPU. And once the user mode driver processes these, rest of it is sent into the GPU. And the push buffer is where the commands enter the GPU. And there are different layers through which these commands go and reach the hardware. There is a host interface and different layers that processes these commands and distributes the workload into the units of the GPU. And the fundamental unit that does the computation in the GPU is called the graphics processing cluster. This is an example of a Maxwell GPU. Maxwell was one of the cards, NVIDIA cards. So there are 4 clusters, and each of these clusters have what are called SMs. SMs are what contain the cores, and one unit of work is done by one SM. Basically, the triangle that we saw, the face, to go on the screen, it goes through different parts of the GPU. The same triangle may travel through different units, different SMs within the GPU. One would maybe shade it to the right color. One would maybe orient it properly on the 3D space. Yet another would figure out whether this is actually going to be a pixel on the screen. Maybe like the GPU is actually working in 3D space, right? And once the 3D space is created, we would need to figure out what part of the 3D space is visible to the user. So for example, the image that the game designer wants to show on the screen is a pyramid, a cylinder, and 2 spheres. What the GPU is rendering is actually the entire 3D space. It has the geometry figured out, but depending on the triangles that were specified from the game, it allocates those points of geometry. And once that's done, the next step in the GPU pipeline is to figure out the viewpoint. Viewpoint is the retina of the viewer, where the video camera is over here. Basically, how the 3D image would look on 2D. Once we know what is the image that would look on 2D, is when we need to figure out how light interacts with the objects on the screen. So all the game frames, any rendered image will always have a light source. Usually the game designer provides one light source, sometimes it's multiple. For example, if it's a scene of a character walking into a room, maybe there are 2 light sources. And maybe if it's an outside scene with running through a forest, there is only one light source, which is the sun. And all the shadows of different objects that are in the scene, those are decided based on where is the light source. So in this case, the sphere's shadow would fall on the pyramid, and the cylinder's shadow would fall behind the pyramid. To calculate all these things, to optimize this processing, the first step the pipeline does is called rasterization. Rasterization is where it decides what are the triangles that will participate into pixels on screen. So even from one single triangle, maybe only sections of it needs to be really computed, really shaded to be visible on the screen. As part of rasterization, all the layers of a scene that overlap each other get tagged by depth, and to decide which triangle occupies which pixel. Um, and this is a view of the pipeline. It starts with the application, and what the GPU does initially is geometry. It does all the modeling of the scene, the shading, the projection, figuring out where in the viewport the objects will be located, and other aspects called culling and screen mapping. Those are further details that I'm not very familiar with, but those are different aspects of graphics processing. And the second step was rasterization, where the 3D image is converted to 2D to be packaged off to the display. This is a picture to convey what this is all about. The first image over there is just the geometry aspect of it, where different objects of the scene are positioned where it needs to be. And in the second step, textures are applied. Those are where how each surface may be reflecting light. For example, cloth reflects light in a different way compared to wood, and maybe in a different way compared to a table. So all these factors are accounted for in the second image, and in the third, the colors are applied, background images are applied, and in the final stage, any lighting corrections are done. So in this case, I guess the brightness was increased, and depending on that, the shadows have changed a little. So this is the flow of how a typical frame is created by the GPU. Next, I want to point out what are some of the enhancements that have helped graphics become more lifelike. The first one, I guess many of you have heard, ray tracing. The goal in graphics is to make rendering as lifelike as possible. The more lifelike the image is, the more immersive the experience. So even in animations, like if the shadows are better, if the lighting is better, it just conveys a more lifelike image, like how we would see in real life. Traditionally, the game designer would create all these scenes by hand. The whole process of figuring out where an object will be, and so if he has a room to work with, depending on where is the light source, what are the and what is the material that the light source is hitting, whether it's a glossy object, whether it's a matte finish, whether objects in the neighboring surroundings should be reflected on the object, where its shadow would be. And for example, if you are a character walking into a room, depending on how what is the angle at which you are interacting with the objects, everything in the room needs to change, right? Like how, what are the objects that get illuminated, and what are the reflections that show up on a mirror on in the scene, for example. These are quite hard challenges. Like it's painful to decide all these things beforehand, like to have all this in the game code before it enters the GPU pipeline. It's quite a toll on the designer to figure all these things out. What ray tracing does is like offload all this work out of the designer's hand into the hardware. So ray tracing basically mimics how light gets reflected on surfaces, whether it's refracted, whether it's reflected, whether the surface is opaque, whether there should be a shadow behind the surface. These are like basically the physics of light is what ray tracing um, figures out. So it's a dedicated hardware unit that does all this processing. To give a quick comparison, um, actually, yeah. So this is a scene from shooting game called Battlefield. So the traditional way the game would have been written, the game developer has a car, and the car is supposed to have a glossy surface, and the surface, the designer has just left it to reflect a vague sort of image, like maybe some plant that's being reflected. So he didn't go into the details of what is being reflected, or what are the what is the image that should be seen on the back of the car here. But if we had ray tracing enabled, what is the reflection that should be shown on the surface is entirely calculated by the hardware by itself without relying on the designer to tell it. And in this case, I think there was a building in front, and the car is able to show proper reflection of the building as how a real car would show. So compared to the two images, the image on the right would be more lifelike. So a gamer who's playing this game would feel like he's actually playing this in real life. So that's the advantage of ray tracing. Another example is this is a pixelated game called Minecraft. Minecraft is basically creating a 3D world out of just these pixelated blocks. It's a very simple game designed like 10, 15 years ago. Um, in this case, the image on the left has just a sky and a window. It's not clear whether the light is inside the room or whether the light is outside. But if we had ray tracing enabled, it would be clear. The light source is from the outside, and because of the sun on the outside, the window is lit up. The window is bright compared to the windowsill, which is darker, and there are shadows on the floor. So it has made the image more lifelike. This was sort of a pet project within NVIDIA once they developed ray tracing hardware. They took this old game and polished it into ray tracing enabled, and it just looked much more lifelike. So, yeah. So that's the advantage of ray tracing. I do have a video to show more about how ray tracing has helped. Um, so this is ray tracing off, and with ray tracing enabled, the reflections on the water are more realistic. Like there's reflection of the bus and the buildings compared to ray tracing off, where it's just dull water alone. It's just grayish water. And this is the car scene. Now on the water, we can see the buildings, and now the water is much more realistic. Like the glass now. I guess. Go back to the page. So how ray tracing is done? So for any 3D world that the game is trying to create, we have the light source somewhere, and there are all sorts of light rays, right, that go all across the frame. Like it can go in any different direction. But what we are really concerned about is only the portion of the world that the viewer is seeing. If you see the video camera is where the retina of the viewer would be. Only the rays that enter the video camera are what we are concerned about. So how the ray tracing works is it starts from the retina and traces back light rays into what are the objects that it's seeing all the way back to the light source. So it eliminates all the unnecessary other rays of light that could interact, but it's not really reaching the eye. So it ignores those and just focuses on these rays of light alone. And depending on what is the texture of the material that light is interacting with, it could bend, it could just like reflect, and so on. That's how each different game scene is figured out. The next one I want to talk about is HDR. So once rendering is done, once you have a good image, it also matters what is the display that we are seeing it on. So image is only as good as the display that we are watching it on. So even if we have the best rendered quality image with all the color enhancements, the reds are really red, the dark colors are really dark, there is a really bright object, there are dark shadows, and all in all, it is a really good rendered quality image. But the experience is only complete when it's visible in the same way that it is rendered. And typically, like a regular monitor may not be capable of the whole range of depth of colors and brightness that would make the image look as good on screen. So this is where the HDR panel technology comes into picture. Though HDR is a panel technology, there are aspects of HDR that go all the way into the game rendering as well. If we were to picture like a photograph, there will be brighter and darker parts of the image that both contain displayable detail, right? Like if an image is overexposed, the information that is in the brighter parts of the image will be lost. Whereas compared to an image that is underexposed, the details in the darker parts of the image will be lost. So, when we look at a photo, when both of them are balanced, is when it will look good to the eye. This is called dynamic range. It is the range of information between the lightest and the darkest part of an image. It's also called luminosity. An image with both high bright areas and dark areas is what will look um, attractive to the eye. Like for example, sunrises and sunsets. Like we can think of this as how we would walk out of a dark room. So if we are in a dark room, our eye is still able to adjust to the darkness, and we can still make out the shadow of the table. We can still make out the chair in the room. But once we step out of the room into a bright outside, we are still able to see the trees and the buildings that surround us. Like even if it's bright sunny day. So this is what we want to achieve even in gameplay. So while the character is in a dark room, all the features, all the details of the room that the character is in, it should still show in good detail compared to when the character steps out into fully bright area. And this is achieved through HDR. So, sorry. HDR basically calculates the amount of light in a given scene and uses that as an offset to calculate how much brightness it should associate with the brighter parts of the image versus the darker parts of the image, so that all in all, everything still fits within the same screen. If there are darker aspects of the image, they still retain the detail, while the brighter parts of the image also retain the detail. So HDR capable displays are able to do this by controlling the backlight of the panel. Like typically when it's a non HDR capable panel, the monitor has a low contrast ratio, and the color and the detail get clipped is when, for example, if you have a normal display and you are looking at a red dress on the screen, it may not look as red or as vibrant as when you are actually looking at it in real life. So this difference happens because the monitor's low contrast ratio. But if you were to look at the same red dress on an HDR panel, it would look much clearer, much vibrant, and the contrast is much higher. So this contributes to more realistic looking images, and HDR content has been helping gamers and movie makers like make it much more realistic. So this is a comparison of like one photo with HDR off and HDR on. So if you see on the image on the left, the snow is all washed out. It's a sunny day and it's very bright, and you can really make out the texture of the snow, or whether it's a plain flat surface or whether it's a hill. But the image on the right is more, you can actually make out it's an uphill area, and the texture of the snow, it's more visible. So this is what HDR achieves in summary. Yeah, those are my references to have a better understanding of how pixel travels from the game all the way to the screen. There is a website called Scratch a Pixel to learn more about graphics development, and these are the references from which I have taken content for this talk. That's it. Thank you so much.